Like and subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon to get new video updates.
Analysis: Why Mexico's protests show fear of AMLO and democracy. The large crowd of Mexicans who took to the streets on February 26 protested a new law that, once signed and promulgated, would cut the budget and staff of the country's electoral agency, known as INE. In a country where elections were routinely rigged for much of the 20th century, the new law is widely seen as a threat to a fledgling multi-party system, and is also seen as part of President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, known as AMLO, in an effort to improve democratic norms, undermine and increase his party's chances of remaining in power after his 6-year term expires in 2024, which he denies. In 1990, Mexico's Congress established an election monitoring organization in response to a presidential campaign 2 years earlier, in which the counting of votes stopped, and the ruling party's candidate suddenly took the lead. Work by this body, the Federal Electoral Institute, was seen as a key element in laying the groundwork for voters to end 7 decades of one-party rule by the Institutional Revolutionary Party, or PRI, which happened in 2000. The Instituto Nacional Electoral, INE, is the successor to the IFE. Its leadership is elected by the lower house of Congress, and is responsible for everything from issuing voter registration cards to making sure political parties' radio and television advertising doesn't break local and federal election rules. The measure would also limit the salaries of INE staff and eliminate its investment trusts. He says INE is not without prejudice, and that elections are too expensive. He accused the INE of turning a blind eye to fraud, particularly in its unsuccessful 2006 presidential campaign, even though observers found no evidence of generalized voting irregularities, and the elections were deemed fair. He originally proposed even more far-reaching changes, including letting the INE leadership decide by popular vote, but that didn't reach the 2/3 threshold of approval in both houses of Congress, needed to pass as a constitutional amendment. AMLO slammed the protesters for being part of the country's elite. What do they really want? This corruption will not be touched. That the privileged be left untouched? They plan to ask the country's top court to rule that the law is unconstitutional and should be annulled. Earlier, the INE and opposition parties have argued in court that the government's changes would allow officials to campaign secretly before the official deadline for doing so, which is currently prohibited. AMLO's Morena party is poised to win the next presidential election, but whether it will retain control of Congress remains to be seen. Members of his party have already begun unofficially vying for the presidency, including Mexico City's mayor and foreign minister. The party has announced that it will select its candidate later this year. Unofficially, AMLO is expected to have the final say on who that person will be, although the party has said it will choose the winner based on polls. The main opposition parties PAN and PRI have formed a coalition to oppose him. The massive demonstrations against electoral reform in November and February were seen as early signs that the weak opposition might be able to capitalize on some dissatisfaction with AMLO's intractable policies. Despite its popularity, AMLO received 46% opposition, the highest in his presidency, according to an El Financiero poll last month. He has tried several times to change the constitution to give himself more control over security and energy matters. He has also expanded the presence in the country of the new National Guard, an army that does domestic policing, and has managed to expand the military's role in things like building a train line and an airport, which he personally pushed as priorities.